Trier around it, 5 on the shot clock. Trier fell down, bounce at right corner. PJC, 3 ball is good at the buzzer.
Wildcat Basketball Weekly, presented by Hughes Federal Credit Union, home of the official U of A debit card. Get yours today at hughesfcu.org.
With head coach Sean Miller, welcome to Wildcat Weekly. Cats getting set for Alabama Saturday night, and then finals week coming up when academics really goes to the forefront. But Coach, basketball on our mind right now. Great atmosphere up in Phoenix. Obviously, a huge win over Texas A&M in a close game. How much did that game kind of match what you could see later in the season, especially come tournament time, just because of the back and forth nature of it?
Well, it was a classic game that represents March Madness. That's usually how it feels, and the venue represented the same thing. And you know, Brian, that's why you want to take on the challenge and the opportunity of playing that type of neutral setting. A year ago, when we played Texas A&M in Houston, I look back at that game as a real learning experience and felt like we gained a lot, especially because we were able to win the game as well. Same thing this year, playing against a really talented team, a team that was undefeated coming into the game, and we had to reach back, make big plays at the end of games. We found ourselves in a few special situations that we'll learn from, and then there's a lot of things that we can point towards as real improvement, things we did very, very well against a great opponent.
Was one of the things that your team maybe learned most from that is closing out the game? Because just a couple weeks ago you talked about the fact that we need to be able to close the game, and that you could see it in their eyes, I guess, in Phoenix, that they had that as a high priority.
Really, since we've gotten back from the Bahamas, you know, I might have mentioned it, but in the Bahamas, kind of like that 9th and 10th 4-minute segment of all 3 games, we pulled up short. And in 2 of those 3 games, it was really the difference. If you stopped the game at about the 8-minute mark, we were up or down by, 1 or 2, might have been tied one time, but it really could have gone either way. And the reason it went against us was our opponent was clearly the best team in that last 8 minutes of the game. Since we've returned, we've been much better finishing out. And you know, you can talk about it, especially with younger guys that have never gone through this before, but until they actually go through it and sometimes maybe fail, do they really understand the concentration, you know, the commitment, conditioning, all the different things, execution, that mean a lot, especially at the end of games. But to your question, we did in fact do a great job in that area against Texas A&M, and then didn't really finish on a great note by fouling a 3-point shooter, but that's a classic example of something we'll learn from.
Hughes is proud to have been serving the local community and delivering outstanding financial performance and value to their members since 1952.
As a performer, my time is valuable, and I count on Hughes Mobile Services to help me run my life.
I'm so glad I made the switch to Hughes.
I love being a Hughes member. They're local and they give back to my community.
Make the switch. Team up with Hughes Federal Credit Union by becoming a member today.
Wildcat Basketball Weekly continues, presented by Hughes Federal Credit Union. Show your Wildcat spirit with a U of A Visa debit card. Get yours today at hughesfcu.org.
Alabama coming to town Saturday night. Before we talk about the Crimson Tide, Raleigh Alkins has been cleared now to play for the first time this season. For those who saw him last year, his body has changed even more now. What do you expect from him early on and as the season rolls?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be able to, you know, have him back out on the court. As you know, when he got injured, he had a Jones fracture, which required surgery. The initial diagnosis was 8 to 12 weeks. We find ourselves now beyond 10 weeks. And for the first time, he's been able to practice in a contact situation with no pain. And just looking at, you know, his body fat, his weight, the fact that number one thing we didn't want to do is rush him, because when you do that, especially on the heels of surgery, you can further set yourself back. So we really taken our time, but while we've taken our time, he has done a real good job of taking care of his body and progressing through rehab, working with Chris Rounds and Justin. But you know, we expect Raleigh to be a better version of himself. The one that we had a year ago is a really talented freshman, and I think he'll be that much better. But just a word of caution to him and everyone, it's going to take a few weeks and a few games. He's only really practiced for about 4 or 5 days. You know, he has 2 more to go here before we play Alabama. And so he'll have, in essence, 1 week of contact under his belt. You don't go from a surgery, sitting out, non-contact, 9 weeks, you know, being non-weight bearing where you can't even run for 6 of those, and then, you know, snap your fingers and, hey, here he is. So we're hoping that sometime in the month of January, he'll hit his stride, and most importantly, that he can experience good health.
All right, Alabama in town Saturday night. Avery Johnson's done a really nice job with that program. He's got some young guys, but they're playing really good basketball. What should the fans expect to see Saturday from the Crimson Tide?
Well, Alabama's a top 25 team, but they're really a top 25 defensive team. They play with a lot of energy. They play 10 players, talented athletically. They have 2 shot blockers. A lot of times shot blockers, just them alone, make you a good defensive team. And you know, number 0, Hall, is a great shot blocker. Similar to what we experienced with Texas A&M. You know, they anchor their defense, but they'll mix in zone. They'll press a little bit, predominantly man-to-man, hard-playing group. You know, on offense, they share the ball. They have a point guard who I think is one of the best players in the country, Colin Sexton, and he's going to put pressure on our entire team. We really have to be ready for the challenge that he presents because he shoots a ton of free throws, averages 20 points a game, and in my mind, he's their team's heart and soul.
Cats in Alabama coming up Saturday night, 8 o'clock tip at McHale Center. We'll see you next time on Wildcat Weekly.
Thanks for watching Wildcat Basketball Weekly, presented by Hughes Federal Credit Union, home of the free U of A Visa debit card. Get yours today at hughesfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA.